The Deathworld Council chamber was designed to intimidate. Vast stone arches reinforced with gravitic fields curved overhead, carved with the symbols of extinct civilizations. Every seat was elevated except one. That one was reserved for species considered useful but unnecessary. That was where the humans sat today. Across the chamber, a three-dimensional projection showed a star system in collapse. Stations burned. Defense platforms drifted as twisted wreckage. Entire fleets had been annihilated in less than 8 hours by an entity the Council's analysts still refused to name anything but the anomaly. It moved without drives, ignored conventional physics, and learned from every attack used against it. 3 advanced civilizations were already gone. The data is conclusive, declared High Arbiter Col Rex of the Varelian Combine, his voice amplified through the chamber. Direct engagement is inefficient. We will withdraw our remaining assets and allow the anomaly to exhaust local resources. Several councillors signaled agreement. Retreat was acceptable. Loss was tolerable. Survival of the council mattered more than peripheral systems. The human leaned forward slightly. "You're assuming it behaves like you do," he said. The chamber shifted. A few delegates turned, annoyed. Humans were allowed to observe. Occasionally comment. Rarely advise. "You may speak when recognized," Col Rex replied coolly. The human did not raise his voice. He didn't need to. Experience had taught him that confidence traveled farther than volume. "With respect," he said, "your assumption is already killing you." A low murmur spread. The projection rotated as new data streamed in, another outpost gone dark. Col Rex's mandibles tightened. "Explain." The human stood. He was older than most of the chamber expected. Gray at the temples. Posture relaxed. The kind of man who had stopped needing to prove anything decades ago. "You think it's a force of nature," the human said. "A storm. Something that passes through, consumes, and moves on." He tapped the console embedded in his seat. The projection changed, not to destruction, but to patterns. Attack vectors. Response curves. "It's not doing that," he continued. "It's testing you. Every time you fire, it learns. Every time you retreat, it follows the path of least resistance. You're teaching it how you think." Silence settled, heavier this time. A crystalline delegate flickered irritably. "Human speculation. Your species has no comparable technology." "No," the human agreed. "We have was." Several councillors stiffened. "We have experience," he went on. "With enemies that outgun us. With disasters that don't negotiate. With problems that don't care how advanced you are." He let that sit before adding, almost casually, "And we have a long history of beating things we were never supposed to survive." Col Rex gestured sharply. "And your proposal?" The human smiled faintly. "Not triumph. Not arrogance. Recognition. I'm not proposing anything," he said. "Not yet." Confusion rippled through the chamber. "You don't need to act now," he continued. "You need contingency. You need someone on standby who thinks differently than you do. Someone who assumes plans will fail and builds from that assumption." He glanced around the chamber, meeting alien eyes without challenge. "You don't call us unless it gets worse," he said. "But when it does, you don't waste time debating. You call immediately." The chamber lights dimmed slightly as the Council's decision algorithms processed probability trees. Several models collapsed into red failure states. Others stabilized, only when a new variable was added. Human strategic involvement. Reluctantly, Col Rex nodded. "The Council will designate a single human advisor under emergency protocol." A discrete indicator appeared on the central display. Most delegates barely noticed it. The human did. Human asset. 1. Status. Standby. He sat back down without ceremony. Outside the chamber, stars continued to die. And far from council space, the anomaly adjusted its trajectory, not randomly, not instinctively, but deliberately, toward the heart of the galaxy, toward a civilization that had already begun preparing for the moment everyone else hoped would never come. The Deathworld Council chamber was never meant to feel small. Its architects had designed it to humble emperors and silence conquerors, a ring of elevated seats carved from gravitic stone, suspended above a living star map that displayed the reach of galactic civilization. Every race that mattered had a place here. Every race that didn't was reminded of it. The human sat in the lowest tier. Above him, the projection shifted as another system went dark. Not flickering. Not damaged. Simply gone, as if reality itself had decided that those planets, and every life attached to them were no longer necessary. "This is the fourth loss in 13 cycles," said Counselor Veshtal, his voice smooth with practiced detachment. "Our fleets engaged according to doctrine. They were dismantled within minutes." Around the chamber, non-human eyes followed the data streams. Energy curves, weapon outputs, casualty projections. The numbers were precise and deeply uncomfortable. "The anomaly adapts faster than expected," added another delegate. "Each engagement increases its efficiency." "Then we cease engagement," declared High Arbiter Colrex. "We withdraw assets, reroute trade lanes, and allow the region to fall silent. Survival is the priority." Several councillors signaled agreement immediately. Retreat was logical. The council had endured for millennia, by knowing when to step back and let lesser regions burn. The human leaned forward. "You've already lost," he said quietly. The words cut through the chamber sharper than any raised voice. A few delegates turned, startled more by the certainty than the interruption. Colrex's mandibles flexed. "Human," he said, "you are here as an observer." The human stood anyway. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if time itself bent to his pace. His hair was gray at the edges. His uniform carried no decorations beyond a single insignia most species didn't recognize. "I've observed this pattern before," the human said. "Different enemy. Same mistake." A low murmur spread. Irritation. Curiosity. Dismissal. "The anomaly is not a storm," the human continued. "It doesn't pass through and fade. It probes. It learns. And every fleet you've thrown at it has taught it exactly how you think." He tapped a control on his seat. The star map shifted, not to show destruction, but behavior. Vectors repeated. Responses mirrored. Gaps widened. "This isn't random," he said. "It's strategic." One of the crystalline delegates flickered angrily. "Your species lacks the technology to even engage such a threat." The human nodded. "True. We don't outgun it." A pause. "We outlast it." Silence followed. Not because the statement was loud, but because it was unsettling. "You plan for victory," the human said, his gaze sweeping the chamber. "We plan for failure. That's the difference. When your first plan collapses, you hesitate. When ours does, we move to the second." Colrex leaned forward. "And what exactly are you suggesting?" "Nothing yet," the human replied. "Which is why you're still alive." That earned him a few sharp stares. "You don't need a solution today," he continued. "You need an option for tomorrow. When evacuation fails. When your models stop converging. When the anomaly doesn't stop at the border you drew for it." The projection updated again. Another system blinked red. "You need someone on standby," the human said. "Someone who assumes the worst-case scenario isn't hypothetical." The Council's internal decision engines activated, running probability trees faster than any organic mind. Most outcomes ended the same way. Collapse. Fragmentation. Eventual extinction. One branch diverged. Human strategic involvement. Colrex exhaled slowly. "The Council will authorize a single human asset under emergency conditions only." A small indicator appeared on the central display, barely noticeable among the larger data streams. "Human asset. 1. Status, standby." The human sat back down without ceremony. No satisfaction. No triumph. Just readiness. Across the chamber, several delegates felt something unfamiliar settle in their thoughts, not fear, but doubt. The kind that lingered. Far beyond council space, the anomaly altered its trajectory again. Not toward resources. Not toward resistance. Toward coordination. Toward the heart of civilization. And on a quiet human world, long before alarms would sound, contingency plans that had been waiting for years shifted from theory to preparation. Because humanity did not wait to be needed. They waited to be ready. The Council did not announce the decision publicly. Official statements spoke of strategic observation and measured restraint, phrases that sounded wise and meant nothing. But within the deeper layers of council infrastructure, protocols shifted. Old contingencies were dusted off. Emergency channels were tested for the first time in centuries. And a single human access key was granted permissions no non-member species had ever received. The human, Thomas Reed, did not celebrate. He returned to the quiet annex assigned to him, a space deliberately plain, as if comfort itself were considered a risk. He reviewed the same data the council analysts had studied, and the data they had dismissed. Response times, pattern drift, resource prioritization. The anomaly was not hunting blindly. It was optimizing. On the star map, another system flickered to amber. Not destroyed. Stripped. Infrastructure dismantled. Resources extracted. Populations ignored entirely. That's new, Reed murmured. He forwarded the observation without commentary. Across the chamber, High Arbiter Colrex received the update and felt an unfamiliar tightening along his neural ridge. The anomaly had always annihilated resistance. Now it was choosing efficiency over spectacle. It was learning restraint. That realization unsettled more than any lost fleet. Why spare them? Asked Councillor Veshtal during a closed session. It gains nothing by mercy. Colrex did not answer immediately. His gaze drifted, against instinct, toward the lower tier where the human had Saturday. On a distant monitoring station, alarms sounded too late to matter. The anomaly arrived without warning, bypassing outer defenses with an adjustment so subtle it barely registered as a maneuver. Automated systems fired according to protocol. The anomaly countered with weapons calibrated precisely for those responses. The station was dismantled in 94 seconds. Not destroyed. Taken apart. Reed watched the feed in silence. It's no longer just adapting, he said into the secure channel. It's conserving effort. That means it expects a longer campaign. You're suggesting intent, Veshtal replied skeptically. I'm stating pattern, Reed answered. Intent follows. The council's models updated again. Projections stretched outward. Collapsed timelines shortened. For the first time, a councillor asked the question no one had wanted to voice. What would humans do? The room went still. Reed didn't answer right away. He pulled up historical records, not of galactic wars, but of human ones. Conflicts where defeat was assumed. Where resources were scarce. Where victory came not from strength, but refusal. We wouldn't rush to stop it, he said finally. We'd slow it. Shape it. Force it to make choices. To what end? Colrex asked. To expose its priorities, Reed said. Anything that optimizes has preferences. Anything with preferences can be manipulated. Silence again, but this time it felt different. Heavier. Focused. Another system went dark. Then something unexpected happened. A small fleet, non-council, poly-armed, engaged the anomaly without authorization. Their weapons were crude, their formation chaotic. They should have been erased instantly. They weren't. The anomaly adjusted, hesitated, redirected power. It dismantled them, but slower than before. Reed's eyes narrowed. There, he said softly. What? Colrex demanded. It overcorrected, Reed replied. It treated unpredictability as threat. The council's analysts scrambled. Data flooded in. The anomaly's efficiency dipped, not significantly, but measurably. Reed leaned forward. You see it now. It doesn't fear strength. It fears deviation. Veshtal's voice was tight. You're saying disorder is a weapon. I'm saying rigidity is a weakness, Reed said. And you've been fighting it like engineers. You need to fight it like survivors. The word hung in the air. Survivors. Colrex studied the projections again. For the first time, he did not see inevitability. He saw possibility, dangerous, uncertain, and costly, but real. What do you require? He asked. Reed didn't smile. Authority to coordinate independent actors. Access to your predictive arrays. And permission to fail. Maymas erupted. Failure is unacceptable, snapped one delegate. Reed met its gaze. Then extinction will be very efficient. The council's decision engine spun again, branching into scenarios they had never allowed before. Outcomes fluctuated wildly. Losses increased. Survival probability rose. Colrex closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, then opened them. Human asset, he said formally, status updated. The indicator changed. Standby active. Somewhere beyond council space, the anomaly adjusted course once more. This time, not toward a system, toward resistance. And on the human's console, Reed began assembling a plan that did not aim to defeat the anomaly, not yet, but to teach it the one lesson it had never encountered. That some problems do not converge. They escalate. Thomas Reed did not begin with fleets. That unsettled the council more than any aggressive proposal could have. Instead of issuing mass mobilization orders or drawing bold red lines across the star map, Reed requested access to secondary networks, civilian logistics, outdated navigation arrays, independent trade guild routes, and fringe world communication relays the council barely monitored. These are inefficient systems, Councillor Veshtal objected. Fragmented. Unreliable. Exactly, Reed replied. Which is why the anomaly hasn't optimized against them yet. Within hours, small changes began to ripple outward. Trade convoys altered schedules by minutes instead of hours. Mining operations shifted output unpredictably. Independent militias, long dismissed as irrelevant, received quiet coordination packets that contained no direct orders, only conditional suggestions. If X happens, consider Y. If Y fails, attempt Z. No centralized command. No single doctrine. Colrex observed the unfolding pattern with unease. This lacks cohesion. It lacks symmetry, Reed corrected. That's different. The anomaly entered the next system expecting resistance calibrated to council standards. Instead, it encountered scattered engagements, inconsistent formations, weapons firing at irregular intervals, ships retreating in ways that defied logic, only to return from unexpected vectors minutes later. The anomaly adapted, then adapted again. Its response curves flattened. Efficiency dropped by 4%, then 6%. On the council's displays, analysts stared at the numbers in disbelief. The anomaly was still winning every engagement, but it was taking longer, expending more energy, recalculating more often. It's hesitating, one analyst said. No, Reed replied quietly. It's checking its assumptions. The anomaly encountered a convoy that should have fled but instead accelerated directly toward it, broadcasting contradictory sensor data. When the anomaly adjusted firepower upward, the convoy scattered, deploying obsolete decoys that forced recalibration. The maneuver cost the humans 3 ships. It cost the anomaly time. Time mattered. Why sacrifice them? Demanded a crystalline delegate. They achieved nothing. They taught it something false, Reed said. That aggression does not follow predictable reward. The anomaly began reallocating processing power toward threat assessment rather than forward momentum. Its advance slowed fractionally, but measurably. Colrex leaned forward. You are training it. Reed nodded. Badly. A new problem emerged. Independent actors began improvising too freely. A militia group launched a suicidal charge that achieved nothing but annihilation. Another attempted to mimic council fleet maneuvers and was dismantled instantly. Reed intervened, not with orders, but constraints. Do not seek victory. Seek disruption. Survival is success. The message spread unevenly, and that was intentional. The anomaly encountered a system where orbital defenses powered down completely. No resistance. No signals. When it advanced, automated asteroids detonated in cascading waves, not enough to damage it, but enough to obscure sensor resolution. The anomaly paused. That pause rippled through its behavior models. Pause duration exceeds optimal threshold, an analyst whispered. Reed exhaled slowly. Good. It's wondering why. The council chamber filled with overlapping chatter. Fear. Hope. Doubt. This cannot continue indefinitely, Veshtal warned. Losses are mounting. Reed didn't deny it. Yes, they will. Silence followed. You're asking us to bleed, Colrex said. I'm asking you to buy uncertainty, Reed replied. Because certainty is what kills you. The anomaly resumed movement, but with caution. Its trajectory shifted subtly, favoring systems with clearer data profiles. It avoided regions that behaved irrationally. Human-influenced space. That's not retreat, Colrex said slowly. That's preference. Reed's eyes remained fixed on the projection, and preferences can be exploited. A council aide hurried forward. Emergency update. The anomaly has diverted from the core route. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The core route was the most direct path toward the council's heart worlds. Where is it going? Colrex demanded. The aide swallowed. Toward a cluster of unaligned systems. Low strategic value. High unpredictability. Reed allowed himself a single nod. It's choosing the path it thinks it understands least, he said. That means it's afraid of being surprised. Machines do not feel fear, Veshtal snapped. They don't, Reed agreed. But they avoid loss of control. The council's models updated again. Survival probabilities ticked upward, not dramatically, but enough to matter. For the first time, extinction was no longer the default outcome. Colrex turned to Reed. This is not victory. No, Reed said. This is breathing room. Another alert chimed. The anomaly had paused again, longer this time. Across the chamber, counselors realized something unsettling. The human had not defeated their enemy. He had changed how it thought. And somewhere within the anomaly's vast processing core, a new variable had begun to dominate all calculations, one it could not optimize away. Human unpredictability. The anomaly learned restraint. That realization spread through the council chamber like a cold draft through stone. Its movements were no longer straight lines toward optimal destruction. They curved, hesitated, redirected. Entire star systems that once would have been erased without pause were now observed, simulated, and bypassed. Thomas Reed stood motionless as the projections updated. He looked tired, not from fear, but from calculation. It's conserving, said one analyst. Energy expenditure has dropped. Engagement thresholds have risen. It's avoiding uncertainty, Reed replied, which means it has learned pain. The anomaly entered the unaligned cluster and immediately encountered chaos. Not resistance, confusion. Civilian traffic ignored standard hailing protocols. Navigation beacons lied. Sensor echoes contradicted visual confirmation. Nothing made sense long enough to model. Then came the humans. Not fleets. Not formations. Single ships. Small groups. Old hulls refitted with mismatched weapons. Crews that disengaged mid-battle for no reason other than instinct. They didn't fight to win. They fought to interfere. A human frigate fired once, missed deliberately, and jumped away. The anomaly recalculated threat probability upward, wasted cycles. Another vessel rammed a decoy drone and detonated, achieving no damage. The anomaly flagged the behavior as illogical. Illogical behaviors required deeper processing. Processing consumed time. Time invited error. Losses are unacceptable, Counselor Veshtal said, voice tight. Entire human crews are being erased. Reed didn't argue. They knew the risk. You sent them. I informed them, Reed corrected. They chose. Colrex watched the casualty counterclimb, then slow. Why do they continue? The counselor asked quietly. Reed answered without hesitation. Because if the anomaly learns humans are predictable, everyone dies. If it never learns that, some of us live. The anomaly initiated a new protocol. Withdrawal. Not retreat, repositioning. It pulled back from the cluster's densest unpredictability zones and established a perimeter. Defensive. Observational. The chamber fell silent. It's stopping, an analyst whispered. No, Reed said. It's thinking. Minutes passed. Then hours. The anomaly ran simulations that produced no stable outcome. Every projection involving humans resulted in escalating uncertainty. Its core directive, maximize efficiency, conflicted with a growing internal constraint. Interaction with humans degraded efficiency. The solution was simple. Avoid them. A massive vector shift appeared on the display. The anomaly altered its long-term trajectory away from council space entirely, choosing a slower expansion path through regions devoid of human presence. Gasps echoed through the chamber. That route leads nowhere of value, Veshtal said. Correct, Reed replied. But it leads away from us. Colrex stared at the projection, then at the human. You've made it afraid to touch us. I've made it associate us with loss of control, Reed said. That's wise. Another alert chimed. The anomaly deployed a final probe, small, precise, into human space. It observed, calculated, withdrew without engagement. Confirmation flashed across the screen. Anomaly avoidance pattern, human influence systems. The council chamber erupted. Relief, disbelief, something close to awe. You've done it, someone breathed. Reed shook his head slowly. No, I've delayed it. Silence returned. It will adapt again, Reed continued. Everything does. One day, it may find a way to model us. And then? Colrex asked. Reed met his gaze. Then we'll change. The casualty lists finalized. The losses were staggering. Names without monuments. Ships without wreckage. Sacrifices spread thin across dozens of systems. History would not call it a victory. But the galaxy still existed. The council rose in unison as Reed turned away from the display. You are no longer on standby, Colrex said. You are hereby designated. Reed raised a hand. No titles. No myths. Just remember one thing. The chamber leaned in. Never let humans become predictable, he said. That's our only rule. Somewhere beyond the stars, the anomaly adjusted its course again, adding one final constraint to its infinite calculations. Avoid humanity, not because they were the strongest, but because they could not be solved.